Hello and welcome to today's recording about why it's so scary to feel our feelings and why it's not actually that scary. A big core of the work I do is allowing my clients to really feel their feelings, the ones that come up in the moment and the ones that they didn't process in the past. I think this is super important because unprocessed emotions and feelings, the ones that we've ignored or distracted ourselves from, are not just gone. They're still part of our subconscious and they can really influence our lives and our perspective on situations. I talk about this more in my video, Feeling Our Feelings, the Why and How. And today I'd like to get a little bit more into why it's so scary to feel those feelings, or why it feels like it's so scary. I think a lot of us have the idea that when we get really into the uncomfortable emotions, whether it's sadness or anger, frustration, which is part of anger, fear, loneliness, disappointment. There are so many emotions that can feel uncomfortable to us. And I think a big reason why it's scary is that it feels like if we really get into it, we might not get out of it or we might be stuck in it. And it can feel like if we really allow ourselves to fall into that hole, how are we going to get out? If we decide to embrace the loneliness, for example, how are we ever going to not feel lonely? If we allow ourselves to be actually angry for what happened to us in the past, how are we going to get to forgiveness? And it might feel like if you open up that supply of that feeling, when you open the lid and allow yourself to look at it, that will be just an endless supply and that you'll never ever get out of it. And we might see examples of that in our real life. We might think we do. We might know people that we feel are really stuck in an emotion. For example, they always seem to be angry, or they seem to have just really embraced their loneliness, and their narrative is that they're all alone. And we don't want to be like that. So we basically do everything to avoid being that and try to stay away from that emotion as much as possible. I think also a lot of us have been taught that if we allow ourselves to be in a feeling, then we'll attract more of that feeling. I think some of the earlier law of attraction gurus talked about that a lot, that if you really acknowledge something, then you attract more of that into your life. And that can be a very terrifying thing because the last thing you want is more of that uncomfortable emotion. And especially you don't want to draw it in. And so since as a society, we've created this narrative that if we go into the uncomfortable emotions, we might never get out and we might attract more of that into our lives. I mean, that's enough to really want to stay away from the feeling as much as possible. But really, the opposite is true. If you really allow yourself to feel an emotion and to really notice the physical sensations that come with it, it actually won't stay forever. If you allow yourself to fall into that hole and to really embrace the loneliness or the sadness or the anger, whatever it is you're feeling, and you really notice that sensation in your chest or in your stomach or in your feet, wherever you feel it, and you allow that to basically wash over you, it won't stay forever. You will notice that it's just a wave that's passing through you that just wants to come up, that wants to be expressed. And then at some point, you'll notice that it's just not there anymore. Now, that's not to say it won't come back at some point or that there's more of it, but you will not stay in that forever. In fact, if you try not to feel that emotion, if you try to really stay away from the feeling, it will stay with you longer because it has no way to express itself. It has no way to be seen, to be processed, and therefore it will still be with you. Now, you might have decided to put it under the rug, to distract yourself, to ignore it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. It will still be with you, it's just not as on the surface. But you will continue making decisions, you will continue looking at perspectives, at the situation of your life through the lens of that feeling that's not felt. And therefore, by ignoring it, by not allowing yourself to go into the emotion, it will actually stay longer. Going into the pure emotion will not make it stay forever. It will actually help you feel it, process it, and it will just change and transform when it's done, as all feelings usually do. Think about this saying, "This too shall pass." It is just passing through. It's just a visitor. It just wants to be seen and expressed, and then at some point it will be gone. Whereas the energy it costs to ignore or distract yourself from a feeling, to talk yourself out of it, to think about the positive when you're not feeling the positive, to do basically anything to avoid feeling that feeling, will cost you so much energy. It will bring so much focus on that feeling, because trying to stay away from it is a very time and energy consuming activity, and it will bring a lot of focus on the unwanted feelings. And your life will be continued to be shaped through that lens. If allowing yourself to feel your uncomfortable emotions is new to you, I recommend starting with noticing what situations bring up discomfort in your body. If you notice during your day that there are certain situations, certain people, certain circumstances that always give you that pit in your stomach, that heavy feeling on your chest, whatever it might be, I would allow you to sit with that, to really allow that feeling to be felt. And if you could look at it with curiosity and see what is behind that, what is it that wants to be felt and expressed? And then if you have the courage to sit with the emotion, to sit with the feeling, and allow the sensations to be felt in your body, I will guarantee you that you will come out being better for it. Maybe not immediately, but definitely over time. Now, if this feels very overwhelming and scary, I highly recommend working with a practitioner, whether that's a therapist or a coach, that can really help you embrace these feelings and really get close to the feeling. Being with somebody you trust that can ask you the right questions, that can help you notice certain sensations, can be really helpful when you learn to recognize what your body is telling you and what feelings are coming up and how to process them. I hope this inspires you to sit with your uncomfortable feelings and know that it's always worse in your head than it actually is when you're feeling it. And don't be afraid to ask for help when needed.